So for this project, I started with a 27 by 28.5 inch window that I picked up at a garage sale. I painted it with some latex paint that I already had, and then I lightly distressed it. Then I started cutting up some stained glass. I'm by no means an expert stained glass cutter, but I did learn how to cut stained glass by watching multiple YouTube videos. So if you're interested in learning, that's a great way to learn, and it's free. So what I'm doing here is I'm making branches on a tree and putting them on the window. And right now I'm just kind of trying to get a general idea of where I want to place the bird. So the only thing that's going to be permanent here is for right now, is the bird. And I actually change the configuration of these branches again and again and again. You'll see over the course of like 7 or 8 days. So like I said, it's really just to kind of figure out where I want to put the bird. So what I did next was I went to the computer and I looked up free bird clip art. And what I'm wanting to make now is a bluebird, an eastern bluebird. So I printed up the clip art for the bluebird, cut it out. And once I figured out exactly where I wanted it, I took some tape and I taped it underneath the glass so that I could use it as a template for placement of the glass. Then I took some blue stained glass and I started nipping it. And this was what's going to create part of the body of the bluebird. And I'm doing this kind of slow so that you can see how I do it. So you just keep on nipping away small, long pieces that you're going to fit together like puzzle pieces when you're done. And you just keep on nipping it until either you have enough pieces for your project or you have used up all the glass. So this is what it should look like, little pieces like that. So the tool with the red handle that I'm using here is called a nipper tool. And you can pick these up at any place that has stained glass. You can pick them up at Hobby Lobby. You can pick it up on Amazon. Anyway, after I was done with that, I started placing the pieces of glass and I used a bead for the bird's eye. And next I started with once I was done with the blue, I started with the orange glass and I started nipping away at the orange glass and placing them on the body and then the white glass. And I'm actually dipping each piece in a tiny bit of Elmer's glue I have on that little plate that I have there. And that so that it will hold it permanently, because I'm afraid with those little pieces being so tiny, if anybody's to bump the window or I'm to move it, or when you put one piece of glass down another one will move, it's just too tedious to allow it to be just sitting there freely without being glued down. So I glue each piece down as I'm putting it down. And I'm just going to zoom through this part real quick. I just want to show you that what I do when I'm trying to figure out what to do. I actually was going to have a tree trunk going on the one side, and I spent a good hour cutting and putting different branches here and there and everything else, and as you'll see in a second, it all went away. I decided I wasn't going to do that, but I just wanted to show you the process of how I do everything. Then next I printed up another picture of a bird and put it on the back side of the glass again, and started putting little pieces of glass on it using the bird picture as a template. And you can see the other picture that I cut out, that I have sitting on top of it, is actually an actual photograph of a bird. So these eastern bluebirds, there's the male and the male has more blue on it than the female. The female actually has more gray on it, and that's how you tell the difference between the two of them. So I thought it would be easier for me if I could actually see a photograph. So I just keep on putting the little pieces of glass on there, gluing them down with the Elmer's glue one by one until I get to the very end. And this Elmer's glue dries clear on the back, so you won't even see it. I'll show you when I'm all done with the whole project what the back of the project looks like, and you can see that the Elmer's glue dries pretty much perfectly clear. Next, I find a photo of two bluebirds looking at each other sitting on a branch, and that's what I'm going to put up at the top part of the window. So I cut those out and I place them where I want them, and I go ahead and tape them to the back side of the window just like I did with the other bluebirds, and again use them as a template. I start preparing the glass again by nipping away at the different colors that I need, and I just start all over again just like I did with the other birds, with a little bead for the eyes and filling in all the colors. I was originally thinking about putting a nest in the tree and having the baby bluebirds sticking their heads out of it, but then when I read up on it a little more, I guess they don't put nests in trees, these eastern bluebirds. What they do is they use either hollowed out holes in trees. That's why I started putting the trunk on. I thought, well, maybe I could simulate like a hole in the tree and put little birds sticking out of there. But then I decided, oh, I didn't know if I could be able to do that. And the other place that they make nests are in those wooden boxes that people make. So they don't, these eastern bluebirds don't actually have regular nests in trees like some birds do, which I thought was kind of interesting. So next I started taking all the stained glass off, and I tried to arrange it on each side so that I would remember where it went. Now I've been working on this for about a week and a half, so as you can imagine there is all sorts of dust and glass crumbs and just messy fingerprints and everything all over this glass, so it really needed to be cleaned up good. And then before I could put the stained glass back down on the glass, I cleaned up every piece of stained glass also, because you use oil when you cut it, and then there was oil all over the stained glass, so I wanted to make sure that was good and clean. So I put it all back on, and then I decided I was going to go ahead and use some Elmer's glue and glue everything down before I started putting the flowers on, because I was afraid of starting to put flowers down and then the stained glass shifting and making a big mess. So I thought it would be best if I just went ahead and glued it all back down. So for the white flowers, I use Celestial Fireglass. You can use any type of clear fireglass, then Artist Loft Iridescent Medium. And I took a huge spoonful and put it in a bowl with the Celestial glass and mixed it up real well. Then I took parchment paper and I put it down on the counter. You have to use some kind of non-stick paper because otherwise it'll stick to the surface. And I spread it out all over the parchment paper and let it dry out overnight. Now, when you put it on, you have to really spread it out as far away from each other as you can because it will stick together. It would be like putting two things with paint next to each other. They would dry and stick together. So just spread it out as much as you possibly can. And then after it dries overnight, you're going to have to kind of push it up off of the parchment paper and separate it as much as you can. A few probably will stick together, but if you spread it out far enough, it should be fine. And this is what I used for the petals of the flowers. So next I started creating the tiny little flowers, and I used 4 of the little pieces of glass, and then I took a little yellow bead and put it in the center of each one. And then I took some green glass. I ended up using this Dollar Tree glass. I had originally took some tumbled glass and was kind of pulling out the small pieces, but I really liked the Dollar Tree glass. So this glass you can find every once in a while at the Dollar Tree, $1.25 for about a half a pound of glass. Great deal. Anyway, so I kind of put the green around where the flowers were to simulate the leaves, and I just thought that was real pretty. And I just went through and put them around the flowers at each of the ends of the branches. I put a little bit, dipped each piece in Elmer's glue and put it back down. The green I did not put Elmer's glue on. I did put a tiny bit of Elmer's glue on the yellow bead before I put it in the center of each of the flowers, but on the green I did not put any Elmer's glue. I just kind of sprinkled that around where I thought it would look good. After I finished the top part, I was ready for resin. When I use resin, I use gloves, I wear a respirator. The resin I'm using in this project is art resin. It's a 1-to-1 ratio resin, 1 part resin to 1 part hardener. You pour them both in the same cup. When you first pour them in, they're clear. After you start mixing, it turns cloudy, and then after about 3 minutes of mixing, it turns clear again. The slower you mix it, the less bubbles you'll get. As you mix, you're supposed to scrape the sides and the bottom to ensure thorough mixing. Once I was done mixing, I started pouring it over the glass first to help hold it in place, and then I start putting it around the perimeters. I did put it on top of the large pieces of stained glass. If I had to, and I kind of put a thick coat over it. If I had to do it again, I think I would have put it a little bit thinner, because this stained glass that I made the branches out of had a nice little shiny texture to it, and I think I kind of covered it up with the resin. So if I had to do it again, I either wouldn't put any on top of it, I would just put it around the sides a little bit to ensure that it held, but none on top of it, at least not as thick as I did. So I just made sure it was pushed around into the corners and along the sides. I know they say resin is self-leveling, but it's really not. You really have to make sure it's in all the little spots, or you will have empty spots without resin. So once you're done with the project, it needs to sit at temperatures between 72 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit on a level, flat surface overnight, up to 24 hours. And I did cover it after I was done. Hey everyone, hope you can see this okay. I put some white paper behind it so that you could see it better, because I got a picture back here. But it went through many changes over the 2 weeks. The branches did, is what I mean. I had it in all different configurations, but I think it looks cute like that. It's like 2 trees next to each other. But this is what I was talking about. I had wished I hadn't put the resin over these branches, because this is what the stained glass looked like. See how it has that really cool texture? And I thought it was really neat for a tree. You can still see it a little bit, but if I hadn't put the resin over it, you would see it more. So anyway, that's probably the only thing that I would change. I think the Dollar Tree green glass worked out really good for the leaves, and my little iridescent white fire glass is what that is, with the yellow beads. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It helps the channel. If you want to be notified of future videos, subscribe. And I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.